Hi, hello, and welcome to the Notebook Nook with me, Mera. This is a place to unwind and reflect on our day-to-day lives, sprinkled with some bookish convos and, of course, some stories of my life. If that's something that sparks your interest, you're more than welcome to join the venture that I call the Notebook Nook. Hi, hello, this is Esmeralda V, and welcome here to my podcast. What exactly is this podcast? You're probably asking, I wonder what she's going to be talking about. Well, I'll let you guys know right off the back. I am a YouTuber. I do YouTube videos. I do a lot of unboxings and things like that on my YouTube channel, which also goes by Esmeralda. And then I have the Me Meta in it. And yeah, I do a lot of bookish kind of stuff over there on my channel. But back to this podcast, what I want it to be, you guys. So it is called the Notebook Nook. And the reason for that is I was actually looking for so many names to kind of call this podcast. And I don't know, I kept thinking what can it be? And I jotted down a few names and most of the names were already taken. So I was a little bit bummed about that. And then the rest of them weren't really as inspiring to me. So what I decided to do was just pull out a notebook, write down all the ideas that I want to do for a podcast, and then also write down words that resonate with me, whether it's books, fandom, library, mental health, things like that, quotes, poems, that kind of thing. And when I finally looked at my notebook and I really took a glance at it and reflected on everything, and also trying to figure out what I wanted this podcast to be named, it hit me. And I was like, ooh, oh my goodness, I think that's going to be a good idea. Notebook Nook. So Nook kind of came out of, because when you think about a nook, you think about a nice comfort space, right? I know me personally here in my home, I have a library nook. I like to call it that way. But it's kind of a little area where I have all my books and it's kind of my own little space. It's my little oasis. It's my little chill spot, little relax. So I wanted it to be something relaxing and definitely more like an area to unwind. Now the notebook part got to me because I realized, oh my gosh, this is super, super perfect because I have not done an actual notebook entry ever since my diary days. Back in the days when I used to put my little diary, dear diary, little Susie Q ended up pushing me against the garage, and we ended up getting into a fight. Oh my gosh, too much information. Point is, back in the days, you used to put little diary entries. Well, nowadays we call it more journal entries. And it's not much of a diary. You just kind of have your own little notebook and you're just kind of journaling about your day or a particular thing that kind of resonated with you and you write it down. So I haven't had a chance to do that. And I figured what a better way than to do this podcast and kind of do it like a journal entry. You know what I mean? So I figured when I do come here, I'm going to probably think about a subject or something that happened to me in that particular week or day, and I may want to reflect on it and talk about it. And that is kind of what this is going to be about. Now, there's many reasons why I wanted to make this, which, like I said, I wanted to be kind of a little bit of a melting pot of various ideas. And again, we're sitting down and just chit-chatting, you know what I mean? That's kind of what I want this to be. So it's a little bit of everything. Now, I am going to probably come here and talk about ghost stories. Some ghost stories that actually happened to me or certain experiences and things that happened to me. And I am probably going to talk about more, I don't know, of my self-growth and things that I have done to kind of better myself and better my mental health and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully some of that stuff will resonate with you guys as well. I also want to make sure that I kind of do a little bit of entries of quotes or phrases or poems or things that really resonated with me, really impacted me in such a positive way. And I want to be able to talk about them. Also, I am a huge book lover, you guys. I did mention about my little library here in my home, but I am a huge book lover. I don't know, if I can explain to you guys what a book nerd I am, I would probably have to explain it in a different entry because then it would take too long. But yes, I am a huge book lover. I am a book nerd, book geek, whatever you want to call it, book collector. That is who I am, and I embody it and I embrace it. So that's something that I know I want to talk about here, whether it's talking about authors or talking about certain quotes and books and maybe review certain books. I probably will do that here as well. But of course, in the title, it's going to tell you guys kind of what that podcast or that entry is going to be. Also, I was told so many times that I was actually a really big storyteller. Like I was a really good storyteller. And not in regards to like faking stories or making up things, nothing like that. It's just whenever I talked about certain events in my life or certain things that happened to me, and I explain them to people, or even if I'm summarizing a book and I'm telling somebody about that particular book, they always tell me like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a good storyteller. Like the way that you explain these events and these situations, it's almost as if you like bring us in. It's almost like you're transporting us into this event, and it's almost like we're reliving it with you." And whether it's to make them laugh or to make them think about things, I don't know, but they just say that they are really intrigued with the way that I actually, tell stories. And that is something that I want to do here on my podcast, is kind of tell you guys a little bit of some stories about my life. And there has been so much, from embarrassing moments to traumatizing moments to funny moments, all kinds of stories that I'm pretty sure probably going to be more embarrassing than anything. But I feel like, I don't know, I just wanted to be kind of lighthearted, but at the same time, also switch it to something serious at the same time at moments, in some moments at least. But yeah, so I was told, why don't you, because some of my story, only a few people had known about who I am or what I experienced growing up. And they had told me, why don't you make a book? You need to make a book. And I'm like, what, a book about what? Like about your life, about your story, about, everything that's ever happened to you. It's so crazy, like the things that you've been through, and you should probably write it down in a book. And as much as that seems very, very interesting to some people, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know if I'm ready to write a book. And not to say that maybe sometime in the future I may write a book, but right now it's just not in my mindset right now to do that. Who knows? Maybe in the future I probably will, and maybe you guys will like the stories and the things that I actually talk about in my life, and maybe I will. Maybe I will kind of write a book or something. I don't know. But it just seems like such a big feat to do. I hear that it is such a struggle to kind of get out there and do books. But yeah, a lot of people have told me, to write a book. So instead of that, I'm going to do this kind of like a little journal entry. And I'm going to be putting information in here. And that way you guys can get tidbits about like my personal life and stuff like that. Now, the reason why I would tell you guys about certain events that happened to me is because I've learned a lot through those events, through those situations, whether they be positive or negative. I have learned and I have grown into the person that I am due to those facts, due to those events. And that's why I really want to talk about them here on my channel. Now, of course, when I am talking about certain particular events, I may change certain things of it because I am still a very private person to a certain extent. And also I may change names and their relations to me, in regards to these other people, only because I really do respect their privacy. If one day they would like to tell their story or their side of the story, they are more than welcome to be able to come here on my podcast. And maybe one day they will come down and sit down and have a little chit chat with me and kind of tell their story. I want them to feel welcome to definitely share their story here on this podcast, but I'm not going to put it upon myself and say, well, you know what, I'm going to tell their story. No, that's not the type of person that I am. So out of the sake of their privacy, I am going to be changing their names and, like I said, what kind of relation they are to me, depending on the subject and so forth. So yeah. Now, if I do talk about mental health here on my podcast, which is something that I really want to talk about, I really want to bring awareness to mental health. I think that is so, so crucial and important, especially nowadays. And more because I had struggled last year really, really a lot. And maybe through this podcast, I'll be able to open up a little bit more to my experience. But yeah, so I do want to talk about mental health. Now, when it comes to certain subjects that I know can be very triggering and I know can be very, negative or harsh, I am going to put out a trigger warning. And of course, in the titles of my podcast of certain entries, you probably will know if it's going to be something traumatic or something that's kind of a little bit that might be rough. And maybe you may want to skip that podcast entry. Definitely at the beginning of the podcast, whenever I start talking, I will give you guys a little bit of a warning warning. And that way, moving forward, if you guys would like to still listen, you guys are more than welcome to still listen. But yeah, everything that I talk about though, in regards to mental health or certain situations, whether they be traumatic or funny or whatever, I definitely want to leave the podcast in a very positive light or a positive note. So therefore, I will be giving a lot of more, I don't know, food for thought and kind of doing things at the very end that would kind of uplift your soul before you leave this podcast. So yeah, that's kind of what this is all about. I don't know what else to say other than, oh yes, I did wanted to talk about something. There has been a quote that I really want to share with you guys, and I want you guys to kind of really zone in on it because it has played a huge role in my life and how I view things. And that is actually a quote that I actually learned back in high school. I was in English class and we had to come up with a quote and then we had to reflect on it and write about it. And I could not for the life of me find the right quote for me. Everyone else was finding these beautiful quotes and everything and nothing resonated with me. So I had a friend, and I'm just going to call her Vivi for just, for privacy's sakes, like I said before. And Vivi had said, you know what? There is a quote that I think you might like. And I said, what is it? And she goes, well, it goes like this. To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. And I stood there thinking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. I like it. Everything about it is like perfect. And I was like, thank you so much. You know who wrote it. And the more and more I researched about who wrote it, I think in once or twice when I was researching, I found out who probably wrote it. And then I can't even remember for the life of me now. At least right now, when you find those quotes on Google, it always says anonymous or unknown, the person who said it. But I have to say, you guys, it does seem like this world is really big. And we may feel at times that we are very minute. We're very little. We're this little speck in this big world. And the world can seem a bit chaotic. It can seem a bit overwhelming when you think about it. And you sometimes feel like you're alone and you're just this little thing that just, I don't know, it just seems to find it very hard in this world. But just know that at the end of the day, yes, you may be something very small here in this world. But to just one person in your life that you may have came across, whether it was when you were young, whether it's when you are an adult, regardless of the situation, you probably impacted somebody in your life, because to one person, you probably are the world and you may not feel it, you may not think it, but in reality, that is kind of what it is. It's one of the most minute things that you sometimes can do, whether it's an act of love or just a selfless act. And just that moment, that one moment that you turned around to tell someone, oh my gosh, I love your hair, regardless of the compliment that you give, you don't understand how much that would impact a person. So just know that yes, you may be just one person here in this world, but to one person, you probably can be the biggest world to them in their life. So just remember that. And I hope that you guys are all having a wonderful day or week. So that's pretty much, you guys, a summary of what this podcast will be about. I hope that you guys will enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to making more content for you guys and seeing where this actually leads, to be honest with you. There's going to be a lot of fun situations, but definitely buckle up because this journey is going to be very interesting. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. And until next time, you guys, bye.